On aimerait remercier tous les supporters marocains à travers le monde pour leur soutien. Et voilà, cette victoire, elle appartient à tout le peuple marocain, à tous les peuples arabes et à tous les peuples musulmans du monde.
What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you for once again joining us. Today we want to talk about the World Cup. As you know, we're wrapping up the World Cup in Qatar. Congratulations, Argentina. But one of the conversations that I wanted to revisit was the Morocco-France semifinals matchup and the big kerfuffle that arose around that. So there was a big online discussion and disagreement around who Africa should support in the semifinals. This was the first time that an African and Arab country reached the semifinals in Morocco. Congrats, Morocco, on making history. So one of the issues that arose was Sofiane Boufal, who ironically was born in France but plays for the Morocco national team, gave an interview or a recap where he was just grateful to be in the semifinals. He thanked everybody, including the dishwasher, for being there, except the Africans. I'm joking, of course. He thanks the people of Morocco, the Muslim world, the Arab world. And a lot of people in Africa, south of the Sahel, took some offense to it. And they referenced some of the tragic history of Morocco with people more southern parts of Africa, such as Western Sahara or Mauritania, to name a few. Now, to me, I'm like, yes, this is true, but they're going against France, and anybody that knows me knows my views on France colonial history and Africa. So it's not like you're matching demons against angels here. It's more of a lesser of two evil here. So the argument for these pro-French Africans or these people that looked on the outside and decided to go with France from that African perspective was a lot of players from France were African, but they were from colonial Africa. So if you, when I looked at a preliminary search of these players, about 4 out of the starting 11 came from French colonies of African places. You know the basics: Senegal, Cameroon, Mali, etc. So because they were African players born in France, I mind you, these were African players playing in France. They thought it was some justification to support France over Morocco, considering those Moroccan abuses against more southern Africans, accusing them of slaveholders and human rights exploiters as well on other Africans. So this is one of those things, like when you learn about the world, geopolitics, and every place has their thing. So this conversation was one of the driving conversations in the splitting of Sudan. So Sudan was a big, beautiful country. I believe it was the largest country in Africa by size, and it was sliced into two pieces. The northern part, which is modern-day Sudan, and the southern part, which is modern-day South Sudan. But one of the major driving forces of that wedge and divide was Islamic North and their treatment of the not-so-Islamic South. And the inability to reconcile those two groups pretty much drove it to separation. So now that Sudan is two countries now. And Islam has had a very strong influence on Africa. And I think what this really does is allow an opportunity to learn and grow. One can arguably, if you was to separate the groups of Africa on purely ethnic lines, one could arguably say that the largest demographic or ethnic group in Africa is Arabs. Arab influence, and you probably can take this back to the Arab Islamic Golden Age, where there was mass migrations of Arabs along the northern shores of Africa, from Egypt to Libya, Algeria, Morocco, all the way till you get to Spain. These were included in the Moorish conquerors, the famed Moorish conquerors of the Iberian Peninsula. But this Islamic movement had happened centuries upon centuries upon centuries ago, right? So there's a massive influence of Islam and Arab. And I imagine that some people, Arabism or being Arab and Islamic and African are synonymous. If you're from Northern Africa, which separate from Morocco to the Horn of Somalia, with the exception of Ethiopia. Ethiopia is always the exception. But with the exception of Ethiopia, this is pretty much the Arab League. It's on that shoulder of the Southern Mediterranean Red Sea angle of Africa. But I think this is a great opportunity for other Africans to appreciate and understand this. And it's another opportunity for these Africans to realize that there is a whole nother part of Africa, south of the equator, that they should acclimate themselves with. Because one of the reasons people supported Morocco was because they wanted to highlight the exceptional players that Africa can produce to provide more teams and more opportunities for them in future World Cups. So it was fitting that it was in Qatar and that Islamic country was able to make history by going to the Arabic country was able to make history by going into the semifinals. But I think you can look at this as a problem with the comments Sofiane made, or you can look at it for an opportunity to be more learned and educated and have that community reach out so you don't get another Sudan. Africa is a very big place and it's a very diverse place. I think diversity really helped develop America. That ability to pull on different people from different places with different experiences allows the adoption and evolution that success requires. And I think as Africa learned to appreciate that as well and embrace that as well, it's going to develop as in those terms also, whether that's Lebanese communities of West Africa, Arabic communities of North Africa, Indian communities of East Africa, even European communities of Southern Africa. Africa is a very big place with plenty to offer the world, and it's a very diverse place. And it's erroneous for anybody to find it to be homogenous or to take such a small slight. I mean, this is soccer at the end of the day. It's a sports game. And try to put some type of hinge on it or hang some type of geopolitical belief upon it. And I'll say this story. So I have a Ghanaian friend, and I talked to him, and I said, well, do you see me as American or an African? And without hesitation, he said he sees me as an American. And this is because of numerous things, the way I talk, the music I listen to, the food I eat, but most importantly to something I cannot even decide on my own. My feet on the ground, where I was born at, and which accommodated all these things, the food I ate, the music I listened to, because if I wasn't born here, I wouldn't have necessarily had access to these things. And I think his lack of hesitation in assigning me that label as an American, I think this really challenges a lot of thought. My people been in America for 300 to 400 years, depending on how you want to do the math. But a lot of those other groups have also been in Africa for centuries. And I wonder if they are just as African as I am American. I think at the end of the day, what I was summing up with is the quote from President Nkrumah, the first president of independent Ghana, where he says, I am African, not because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me. And I think if that is good enough for President Nkrumah, who am I to argue? All right, squad, let me know your thoughts. If you like the content, enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, and share. Check out some of our geopolitical products online at Amazon. Link is in the descriptions. And I look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.